Welcome to a new episode of SCC Online Weekly Rewind. I am Nilufer and I'm happy to present before you the latest news and updates from this week. In this episode, I will be covering the top news of the week, which is the reinstatement of the MP District Judge by the Supreme Court. I will also announce the winners of the weekly quiz and also mention the newly added features on SCC Online. Stay tuned for this and a lot more. In the case where one additional district and sessions judge of Madhya Pradesh was left with no other alternative but to resign after she was transferred as a consequence of the sexual harassment allegations levelled by her against the administrative judge of the Madhya Pradesh High Court, the bench of L. Nageshwara Rao and B.R. Gavai has held that the said resignation cannot be said to be voluntary, and therefore set aside the order accepting her resignation and directed her reinstatement as additional and district sessions judge. The district judge was transferred mid-term from Gwalior to Sidhi, that is from category A to category C, which is against the transfer rules. Also, her representation regarding her daughter's education was not paid heed to. All the frustration actuated by the thought that injustice was being meted out to her by the very institution of judiciary led her to resigning from her post and choosing her daughter's education over her own career. In a case where a bank employee was dismissed from services despite lack of evidence, the Supreme Court has directed his reinstatement and has held that even in departmental proceedings, there has to be some overt evidence and not mere suspicion to support a valid finding of complicity of the employee. In the case at hand, it was alleged that the respondent had disbursed loan in favor of 12 fictitious persons and misappropriated the amount of 60,000, forming the subsidy component. Interestingly, confession of guilt by his colleague resulted in a mild penalty of withholding of increments. However, the respondent, who did not admit his guilt or confess to it, was dismissed from his service despite no credible evidence. In such circumstances, the court observed that the bank's charge about his complicity had to be proved by evidence and the document containing others' confession could not be used against. In a case where a 65-year-old man committed aggravated penetrative sexual assault on his 4-year-old neighbor, the bench of M.R. Shah and B.V. Nagaratna justices have observed that any act of sexual assault or sexual harassment to the children should be viewed very seriously, and all such offences of sexual assault on the children have to be dealt with in a stringent manner, and no leniency should be shown to such a person who has committed an offence under the POCSO Act. Noticing that children, and more particularly the girl child, deserves full protection and need greater care whether in urban or rural areas, the court observed that cases of sexual assault or sexual harassment on children are instances of perverse lust for sex, where even innocent children are not spared in the pursuit of such debased sexual pleasures. Deciding on the question pertaining to the exclusion of married daughters from the dye in harness scheme of the state government, the Tripura High Court, while explaining the object and scheme of the Act, expressed that marriage does not break the bond between a daughter and her parents, as it does not do so between a son and his parents. A crisis in the family of her parents equally worries a married daughter. As such, there is no rationale behind the exclusion of a married daughter from this scheme. The High Court held that the dye in harness policy, inasmuch as a disqualification in the case of a married woman as against a married man, must be held to be discriminatory, and such a policy tested on the touchstones of Article 14 to 16 of the Constitution cannot be held to be valid. Addressing a matter wherein a child's mother was diagnosed with cancer, due to which she started living at her parental home with her child, and after the passing away of the mother, a custody battle arose between the father of the child and the father and brother of wife. The Bombay High Court noted that the animosity of the child towards his father, to which the court expressed that the same must have occurred due to the parental alienation syndrome, expressing that preference of a child alone cannot be a decisive factor. The High Court gave the custody to the father and stated that the child has already lost his mother at a very young age and requires parental love, care and affection and protection for overall development. The Unique Identification Authority of India notifies Aadhaar authentication and offline verification First Amendment Regulation Rules of 2022 to further amend the Aadhaar authentication and offline verifications regulations of 2021. The amendment inserts various definitions such as Aadhaar letter, Aadhaar PDC card, e-Aadhaar and M-Aadhaar. SEBI has issued a circular on the Audit Committee of Asset Management Companies or the AMCs. It has been decided that the AMCs of mutual funds shall be required to constitute an audit committee. The circular provides the role, responsibilities, memberships and other features of the audit committee of the AMC. It shall come into effect from August 1, 2022. The Lieutenant Governor of the NCT of Delhi, in consultation with the High Court of Delhi, has notified the Delhi Judicial Services Amendment Rules of 2022 to amend the Delhi Judicial Service Rules of 1970. Rule 7 has been modified to include a proviso providing that the quorum for any meeting of the selection committee. Rule 13 has been modified to provide the recruitment process. Rule 14 has been modified to include the eligibility criteria when the candidate is not more than 32 years of age on the 1st of January of the year in which the applications for the appointment are invited. Do check our full report on the SCC online blog to read our detailed article. We have introduced a new feature on SCC online. Search through funnel for notifications now gets easier as we have started adding headings to the notifications. Hope you will find this effort by the SCC online team useful. The question for this week's SCC online quiz was: how many foreign codes are covered on the SCC online database? Answer to this question is 23. The winners of this week are Jay Shah on LinkedIn and Twitter user Excalibur2022 on Twitter. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more updates.